This is every unit that you can inherit Arcane Grima to. All of them. I worked really hard on this, but I think this might be easier if we look at it another way. Let's pull up this rubric again. Now let's remember, there are only a couple things you need to worry about. The first is movement type, and the big reason is skill inheritance. You can get certain skills on certain movement types, certain that you can't on others. In this case, Hardy Fighter is a big one. Stat distribution, remember that's it. Like these two first ones are the really big things. Like what skills can you get? What stats do you have? We've rewound all the way to like 2018 here. But knowing the correct stats is important. The next up is cost. Obviously, this is going to matter more to you based on what you have, what you don't have. Sometimes things are cheaper, sometimes things are already in your barracks. And the last, of course, is to remember there are no preference skills or weapons. They do not exist in this space. So if a unit has something special about it that is given to it by a preference skill, then that is something that you probably want to consider another unit for. I want to move us on into what exactly the skill does. There's a couple things though that we need to look at here. This is very similar in the number of skills that we get, the number of effects that we get as Leafs. The thing is here, we are establishing a baseline. Like I think this is about what we can expect every time. And this is a good amount. I would have preferred some things and not others, but I still like that they're doing this. I like that they're giving this many skills, and I love that they're doing this every month. That is a huge, huge deal. Real quickly, this is slang, which we've seen is very, very common. We have the Omni +5, which is nice. I mean, it's kind of standard on most preference weapons now. We might as well be able to get it for the 3 and 4 star pool. We've got the guaranteed follow-up, excellent. True damage based on your attack, which is very, very good. And then we have 7 HP healing, which it's sneaky. Like that's something that can be very, very effective. The thing I really want you to pay attention to is what these units are going to be like. And the dividing line to me is speed. The thing is, we are in the middle of a speed war. Seriously, like the speed stacking has gotten to incredible heights. When I'm building a unit that's going up against Brave Sella, for instance, I normally want in the 80 range. Like it's fairly high. So we've got that going on. Speed lets you ignore a lot of other effects though, and it lets you kind of have a pseudo null follow-up with these units, which is very nice. So this is what I came up with. There are some important things. The reason there are no calves up here is because all of the calves, all the dragon calves have something that's legitimately special about them. What I will say is if you have a favorite unit that you want to use in more ways and this skill lets you do that, this is kind of like free fodder, right? You get to keep the unit and give away their skills. So, I mean, this is very much have your cake and eat it too. It means that you can splurge a little bit with this, and there's nothing wrong with that. Keep that in mind as you're looking at different units. Keep in mind that most of the units that this is going to be on, they aren't going to be just meta destroyers anyway. They're going to be units that you get to revive and use, but still need support. That means you have a lot of freedom in what you can do. Flyers, this is going to be a big point of contention. The big issue is use case. They're susceptible to 2 types of effective damage, and I know the armors are as well, we'll get to them, but the fact that bows are so common right now, and we are starting to see more dragon effective weapons, it puts them in a bad place as an Omni-Tank, because you have to use both DC and Iote's shield. That is 2 slots that are taken up, and again, we're in this speed war. Every single point counts. And oftentimes that means you're losing between 7 and 10 speed on these units. Is huge. Where do you use these though? I mean, in AR, they just don't really have a place because of all the things I said. You can't Gale Force with them. You can't tank with them. In Summoner duels, I mean, They're not really going to serve you very well there. There are just better options, and the units that you do have to do so much. Normally, you're looking for a unit that also has a preference skill that aids the rest of your team, and obviously that's not possible this way. Possibly you could do like a joint drive to help with the team or some other type of deal, but you can see where I'm going with this. There's just not a very good place to use them. Again, if you're doing it for fun, knock yourself out. What I will say about armors, yes, they have the whole armor effective thing going on, but what Hardy Fighter and special damage reduction has brought us is a way to counter that. It brings us a very neat way of using these units that still have effective things going against them. Looking down this list, though, the thing you have to really look at is how quickly the speed drops off. I mean, there are really two units that you love to have this on. The first is Sothis, the second is Tiki. And Fallen Tiki, you guys, your time has arrived. Like, this is your weapon. I'm gonna get to it. I'm really excited about the Fallen Tiki build. But after that, I mean, the next one up, a lot of you do have Christmas FAE. At 37 speed, though, I mean, that is a big drop. It's hard to get behind. Of course, you have the Grimas then, and you just go down from there. They can still be used, and once you get into that speed level, you almost want to run over to Deginsia and start using him because he just drops all of his speed and has all the other stats. But this effect doesn't have wary in it, so you are going to get hit twice. Unless you can kill on the on the rebound, but that is harder and harder to do in the world of massive debuffs, HP, Miracle, all of these other things. They're really trying to make it harder to one-shot units, which is kind of fun. When we go over to infantry, this is what we're talking about with the new breed of Omni-Tanks. And a lot of that comes from, especially in Aether Raids, this whole thing where the threat range has dropped to such a level that you are no longer worried about Farscape covering your entire map so that the crazy Sigurd line that triggers Holy Knight Aura and lets Legendary Lolina travel 18 spaces somehow with with the help of Pathfinder. That isn't really a thing in the defenses that we're seeing right now. That could change, but because of that, that's why these Omni-Tanks, things like Brave Dimitri that you guys have seen, I'm sure, enough times by now. When we start looking at these, though, like Adrift Female Corrin and especially Fallen Male Corrin, 50 speed is something. Like that is very nice. We don't really get to a free-to-play option. I mean, you notice we really didn't have a free-to-play armor option. We don't get a free-to-play option here until we get down to Kana, which is 45, and that's a pretty big drop. Now, it's comparable if you look over to Fallen Tiki. They're about the same speed, so you're still getting a lot out of this unit. I will say I wanted to move down to 6, and I just lost room. 6 is FAE, and I've got a really neat build for her that I think you guys are gonna love. But yeah, because of the way this skill works, because of so many preference skills on dragons, we just have very few candidates for this compared to Leaf's arcane weapon, which could just be used on, I'm trying to remember the tier list size, I think it was like 102. It was a lot. I want to move on though and talk about the different builds. The big thing here is the archetyping that I want to look at, and there are two big archetypes. Both of them are tanks. We have the Omni-Tanks that we talked about, and then we have the speed armors. Both of them can be very neat. The luxury option here, and I know quite a few people got plus 10 Fallen Male Corrins because they were summoning for something else. I don't even remember the banner. I remember it had 2 amazing units and this one. And because of that, I saw him everywhere for a while. But this build, this is, I say these aren't meta units, this is a very powerful unit. Attack speed finish 4 really plays in nicely to what this unit is doing, especially because that breath effect is going to allow Soul to recharge regularly, probably every enemy phase hit unless guard is applied. It is significant. So If that's ready, you of course get the additional true damage from the finish skill. Dragon's Wrath is going to give you extra damage and extra damage reduction. Speed Smoke 4 is kind of more of a luxury. The thought there is once the first hit happens, after that you get additional damage reduction. The problem always is that first hit is the strongest unit. They're the unit that is going to take off the most HP. And that gets tricky, as you guys know. So that is a luxury item and can be swapped out pretty easily, even if you put like a joint drive speed here. I mean, that bumps his effective speed up to 71. Yeah. I am showing max investment here because I want you guys to be able to see what is possible. Understand for merges, if you're looking at something that is +0, just subtract 4 from all of those stats and you're there. Let's go over now and look at Male Kana, he's kind of the budget option here, but this is a really neat build. If you're looking at a unit that you need as a melee specialist, that unit that sits in front of your spar save, this is it. This is a really decent build on this unit. And I know so many of you were disappointed with this Boys Were Fine, and it was... There is a skill now that helps you. This is very nice. 78 effective speed is spectacular. Keep in mind that is also taking into account that's not taking into account that you're debuffing the enemy. None of their buffs count because of that lull skill. There are other things you can use. I really think this is the one you want for melee specialist because the thing you are going up against is Brave Seliph. That is your baseline for all of the melee things that you have to go up against. Obviously, there are other things that can be a concern, particularly with this unit. You want to worry about auto follow-ups from things like Saros. But let's move on to this last one because I think this is really interesting. This is FAE. So this is like very free to play. We're going 70 effective speed here, which is quite high. It's not high enough that you're not worried about Brave Seliph. In fact, on a Brave Seliph map, you probably just can't use this unit. But there are plenty of maps that don't have him on there. But look at these stats. And now I did quad bless this unit. You can see down there with Asker, Uller, Peony, and Air as well. And that definitely gives, like, that's 2 sources of extra speed and so much HP, like 87 HP. This unit is a brick. And I mean, on top of that, you get the damage reduction from Dragon's Wrath as well as the extra damage. You get the extra damage from Arcane Grima. Yeah, you've got Soul for extra healing beyond the 7 per hit. Like, this is a really competent unit. I like this build a lot. Particularly with Kestrel Stance, which I know is starting to become more common. I think the hardest thing to get in this kit would be Dragon's Wrath 4. And I mean, there's an argument to be said that you could use something else there. Even if you just had a regular Dragon's Wall, I think that would do it. But yeah, there are plenty of budget options to put on there. But if you're going like premium FAE, this is it. But yeah, these are really decent builds. The problem is I couldn't list like 7 pages of these. Like, these are very specific to these units, and you saw just a few more. These are archetypes that can be swapped as you like. If you wanted to make, well, FAE couldn't be a melee specialist. She's just not going to get there. But the attack speed finish Dragon's Wrath 4 build on her would work just fine as well. I wanted to give you different ideas on things. The reason I put the Kestrel Stance on her is because she has 70 speed. It is more likely that she will get doubled by something. And so I wanted to make sure that you had some kind of guard on there. Oh, one more thing, and this will benefit all of these units. I've got infantry null follow-up there, and that's because I have 2 infantry units supporting her. If you've got a different team comp, I actually like infantry speed tactic better. But yeah, infantry null follow-up, obviously that does an excellent job. And it really changes the way these units play, and it adds that extra oomph. So if you're building a team around these units, which, keep in mind, before this happened, you couldn't do. Like, this is a new thing, but that's the way you want to get it done. All right, moving on, I want to talk about the armors. These are very, very interesting. Word of caution. Winter Sothis will get a refine, and it will be at least decent. I don't know if it's going to be better than this weapon. What I will say is I am less worried than most folks are about refines overshadowing this fodder. And the reason is, again, it's kind of free. You get to keep the unit. I know that's not free, but it is a resource that you get to use twice. And so it's like one of those things you get to use one for yourself and then one just for fun. And so, I mean, if you've got a plus 10 Winter Sothis, then you're probably a whale. But even if you've got like a plus 0 Winter Sothis, we're still looking at, that's only 4 less speed. That's 71 speed that this unit has. And Distant Dart is premium. But other than that, I mean, this is pretty easy to get. This is not hard. And you could just as easily swap around for some of these other things. I will say that I am not as big a fan of the distant counter seal for dragons as other folks are. In certain cases, it's very good, but in most, I would rather have the extra stats, and seals have just gotten so good, I don't want to give them up. Let's move on to FAE though. You saw this in the other one. The nice thing here is the Hardy Fighter Aegis combination, and you're hoping in this that the additional true damage you get from her attack is really the thing that's going to get those extra kills, and if not, you're going to get a double. Like that's your hope. The nice thing with Hardy Fighter, and we discussed this, but it takes away the opponent's auto doubles. It is a very powerful skill that is incredibly synergistic with this preference breath, as seen with the fact that it comes with the arcane unit. I mean, that's yeah. The last thing here, and this is a fascinating build to me. This is the Tiki build. This is 71 effective speed. Summoners, this is so much fun. This has the Distant Dart. This has Savvy Fighter in it, and then it has that same quad blessed team. The thing I want you to look at, not only how many stats and how bulky this unit is, but I really think this unit could perform at a high level. If you have a plus 10 Fallen Tiki, and I've talked to so many of you that do, this is your chance to take this unit and actually use her without all of the crud that came with her. Because they did her wrong. Like, they really did. They did not do a good job with her refine. It did not work well. But anyway, with this, 71 effective speed. Again, if you only have a plus 0, just subtract 4 from that. Like, that's what you're working with. This is a very, very good stat spread for this type of skill. Obviously, Savvy Fighter is premium, but I have to tell you, like, up until Brave Seliph, I was using Ascendant Ithune, who is not a speedy armor, as a Savvy Fighter Omni-Tank, and she would just solo maps. It was absolutely stupendous. Brave Seliph changed all that with how high his speed gets, but I was regularly outspeeding units like Ninjorin, like Brave Lysithea. That was not a thing I really had to worry about. You're in that same bucket here, only you have better speed. Also, this is a really nice kit. The only thing this unit is missing that Ascendant Ithune definitely has is the Fallen Shield built in, which is a huge deal. I'm not saying it's not. There is one last thing that I want to talk about. All these are excellent builds, but I want to bring up the fact that the best user of this weapon is Rearmed Grima. Hands down. She is very, very good with this. I am so impressed with that unit. I think she is going to be stupendous. I think she's going to be a lot of fun. I really want to know how she stacks up versus Duo Duma. I am very, very curious, but that is a tale for another time. I want to do one more thing. So we talked about the fact that I don't think that looking at a tier list is as effective on this weapon as other things, but for some of us, this is a nice way to see everything all in one. And I guess the thing I could have done to make this better is actually have the speed numbers by each unit, but I honestly didn't have the time. I apologize. But this is a real easy way to go through and look at. Like, in the C is basically all the units I saw with preference weapons that I like better. Or at least like the same. Also, if they have preference skills, almost unilaterally, I put them down there. That includes Sothis. I know you guys. Sothis is not bad because she's Sothis. Sothis is bad because she is a tank on defense, which is just not a very good role. But yeah, Sothis, her refine in a vacuum is very good. I know. I'm gonna get stuff thrown at me. Her use cases one's bad. Again, that's why I don't have any of these flyers up here. And some of these flyers are very fun. I mean, it is fascinating to think about Duo Sothis with this weapon. It really is. But I mean, Duo Sothis mainly is an arena score bot. You're gonna take a score hit for an arcane weapon? No. The one that I will say, Halloween Tiki, Harmonic Tiki is very interesting with this weapon. And folks, there are some fantastic theory crafts on how to make her. Oblivion has one out. You should go check him out. The Shadow has one out. You should go check that out. But yeah. So the one last thing I will say with all of this is if you are interested in the effect itself and where the units rank from last night, you can go to the reaction I had. In my reactions, I always do tier lists in them, so immediately you get to see where units rank and all of that great stuff. Summoners, let me know if you're summoning for this. I want to know I want to know where you're going to use it. What are your plans? Take care and schedule an appointment with your FEHologist real soon.